Hey there, and welcome. Every single day, so many of us close the door and head out into the world, leaving our best friends behind. But have you ever stopped to really wonder what happens in that quiet house? I mean, what do they actually think, feel, and experience when we're not there? Today, we're going to dive deep into the science to uncover the incredible and surprisingly complex internal world of our pets when they're home alone.
I mean, it's the million-dollar question for any pet owner, right? We've all wondered, do they miss us terribly? Do they just curl up and sleep until they hear our car in the driveway? We imagine them just waiting, but you know what? The reality of their inner life is so much richer and more fascinating than we ever gave them credit for.
For the longest time, the going assumption was that our pets they just pause. Like they enter this kind of low-power mode, just passively waiting for the sound of our key in the lock to reboot their entire day. But it turns out that couldn't be further from the truth.
Yeah, recent research has completely torn that old myth to shreds. Modern science, everything from animal behavior studies to neurobiology, it shows us that when we leave, our pets' brains are very, very much switched on. They're navigating this whole hidden world of sophisticated time perception, complex social thoughts, and, some pretty deep emotions.
Okay, so to really get what it's like to be them when they're alone, we have to go way, way back. The secret is buried in the completely different evolutionary paths that dogs and cats took to end up on our couches. Believe it or not, their ancient history is still running the show.
And this is the big one, the fundamental split. On one side, you have dogs, who evolved from these highly social pack animals. They are literally hardwired for cooperation. And on the other, you have cats, who come from a long line of solitary hunters, making them wired for independence. This single distinction, it's the key to understanding pretty much everything that follows.
And you can see how that plays out right here. Dogs were brought into our lives for cooperative jobs, right? So they see us as part of their pack. For a dog, our absence isn't just quiet, it's a genuine social disruption, which is why they have a higher risk for real distress. Cats, though, they kind of domesticated themselves. Their bond with us is absolutely real, but their basic programming is for self-reliance. It's just a different operating system.
This quote just nails it. Genetic studies back this up. Your fluffy house cat is, in many ways, still a wild hunter at its core. Now, this doesn't mean they don't love you. Of course they do. But it means their brain processes being alone in a totally different way than a dog's ever could.
All right, next up, let's get into one of the most mind-bending parts of their world, how they experience time. They don't have watches, they can't read clocks, so how in the world do they seem to know exactly when we're coming home? The answer is, well, it's incredible.
So how do they do it? Is it just a good routine, some kind of internal biological clock? Well, yes, but it is so much more elegant than that, especially for dogs. It turns out they have this sensory superpower that we completely lack.
Get ready for this. The answer is they smell time. It's a concept called the olfactory clock. A dog's sense of smell is so ridiculously sensitive that it can literally track the passage of hours just by measuring how much of your personal scent has faded from the air since you walked out the door.
So here's how it works. Picture this. When you leave, your scent in the house is at 100%. As the hours go by, that scent starts to fade at a really predictable rate. Your dog learns, through experience, that when your scent hits, let's say 20%, that's the magic number. That's the moment you usually walk back in. They're not just guessing, they are literally calculating time with their nose.
And if that wasn't mind-blowing enough, time itself probably feels different to them. Because dogs have a higher metabolism than we do, their subjective experience of time is actually stretched out. So 1 hour for us might feel more like an hour and 15 minutes for them. This means an 8-hour workday feels way, way longer, which really intensifies that whole experience of being alone.
Okay, so we've got their evolutionary wiring down, and we know how they perceive time, but what are they actually feeling and doing after that door closes? Well, the emotional spectrum is a lot wider than you might think. It can range from deep rest all the way to active, vigilant work.
You know, we have this image of our cats as these professional nappers, just snoozing the day away. But when scientists actually put little cameras on them to see what they were really up to all day, well, the results, as this quote says, were absolutely stunning. Just look at this data. Sleeping? That was only 6% of their time. 6! The biggest activity by far, at 22%, was actively looking out windows.
They were also climbing, playing with other pets, and just generally engaging with their environment. They are not just waiting around.
So here's the big takeaway from that. For a cat, being alone is work. It's their shift. It's their time to fulfill that ancient instinct to patrol their territory, to monitor for threats, check for opportunities, and engage all their senses. The empty house isn't empty to them. It's their domain, and they are managing it. Now, of course, for some pets, being alone is really stressful. But it is so important to be able to tell the difference between clinical separation anxiety, which is a genuine panic disorder, and just simple boredom. Anxiety, for example, it kicks in almost right away and the destruction is focused on exits like doors and windows. Boredom, on the other hand, it builds up slowly and leads to more general chaos like chewing on a shoe because the pet is just looking for something to do.
So, now that we have this much clearer picture of what's going on in their heads, what do we do with it? This final section is all about bridging that gap between all this cool scientific understanding and what we can actually do to help.
Cutting-edge science like fMRI scans of awake, happy dogs has given us this unbelievable look inside their minds. We've learned that their brains are wired to process actions, not just what things are, but the doing of things. And, just like us, they have a brain network for daydreaming. But here's the catch. In anxious pets, that network can get stuck in a worry loop, where their brain just constantly replays the fact that we're gone.
And this is the most important question, isn't it? We have all this amazing science that gives us this window into their minds. So what can we actually do with it to make their time alone better, safer, and a whole lot less stressful?
Well, the research points to a few really clear strategies. First, predictable routines are everything. This helps your pet use their internal clocks, and it reduces the uncertainty of you being gone. Second, give them a job to do. Enrichment, like puzzle toys, gives their action-oriented brains something to focus on, and that can prevent those boredom or anxiety loops we just talked about. And finally, for our cats, we have to move past the aloof stereotype and really learn to recognize their much more subtle signs of stress.
And believe it or not, this is all just the beginning. I mean it. Scientists are already using artificial intelligence to decode animal communication. And while we're not quite there yet for our pets, the technology is moving so fast that it could one day translate the patterns of their brains and their bodies into something we can finally understand.
It's a pretty powerful thought to end on, isn't it? We've spent thousands of years living side by side with these incredible animals, and we might just be on the verge of finally, truly closing that communication gap for good. So, what would be the first thing you'd ask?